Hello and welcome to Simply inTAXicating. In today's episode, we are going to talk about an element which is often found missing in most of the policy decisions taken by either the central government or the state government, and even at the lower tier municipal authorities whenever they make policies for the common man. And that is, of course, we are going to talk about the ease of doing business. Ease of doing business, something which impacts the common man, the small entities which are into the business of business, the large corporates, the policy making, so many aspects where the ease is required. But today our focus is going to be the World Bank report, which has given very poor ranking to India, 142nd ranking. Of course, we lost about 9-10 notches in last 2-3 years when the country, the UPA government was particularly had run into different kind of policy quagmire. So today we have several experts available in this studio who are going to share their experience at the ground level and enlighten the TIL viewers on various dimensions of ease of doing business. So we have Mr. T R Rustagi, who has been with the government for more than 3 decades and then outside the government for almost a decade now. Of course, we are going to be benefited by his experience. We have Dr. Suraj Kumar from the Niti Foundation. He is going to tell us about his experience because he is working on various kinds of projects where the ease is going to be the focus. Then we have Mr. Bimal Jain from PhD Chambers, of course taxation experts as well, and he is going to give us the industry perspective, and of course Mr. Anil Bhardwaj, he is going to give us the perspective. He is from the FISME, the General Secretary, give us the perspective for small, medium, large enterprises. He himself is a bundle of experience. So let's start with perhaps Mr. Rustagi. Sir, please tell us about your experience.
I think when we talk about ease of doing business, there are various facets of doing business. I mean, you should have a good policy structure, you should have a good investment climate, land availability should be easier, I mean infrastructure should be good, government should be accountable, judiciary should be approachable, and any dispute should be able to be resolved quickly. But one important aspect of doing business for anybody is taxation also, and it is a very important aspect. The issue is that in the context of taxation, when we say ease of doing business, any businessman will see the ease from the perspective of certainty of taxation. He will see from the certainty of the incidence of taxation. He will see from the certainty point of view as to how much I have to pay today, maybe how much I am expected to pay after 5 years or 10 years. So then only he makes a decision to make investment or to set up industries or to do business in any country. So ease of being business has actually a lot to do with the confidence of the taxpayers.
In the policy making.
In the policy making, right, as well as in the implementation of tax policies. So that aspect is being realized now. I mean, because the world is becoming more competitive. So every country is looking from the perspective of encouraging investment, encouraging entrepreneurs to come to their countries and do business. So India actually has started looking forward only now in an aggressive way as to what actually should be done. Maybe in the past also they were looking at this aspect, but more aggression has come now because people have become more conscious, and then the lobbies and pressures internationally and nationally are more today than it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
So it has a lot to do with the certainty in the policy making and the efficiency of the tax administration. Before I go to Mr. Anil Bhardwaj, let us hear what the CBDT Chairperson, Ms. Anita Kapur, has to say on the issue of ease of doing business.
Let me first clarify that on paying taxes, which are the parameters which are used to do a ranking. When they look at paying taxes, they are not looking only at income tax. They look at social security payment, other taxes, sale taxes, etc. If you look at only at direct taxes, that is income tax, there are three parameters which are being used. One is how many times the taxes have to be paid, what are the kind of taxes being paid, that is. Second, how much time is taken in filing compliance. India, if you see only these three parameters, you can say we rank on each parameter, we would be among the top 10 because we only have two taxes, income tax, and now they treat dividend distribution as a separate tax. So even if you include that, we have two taxes. And if you see the countries which are ranked among the first 10, United States has two taxes, New Zealand has two taxes, Australia has two taxes. So as far as number of taxes go, we are among the top 10 in fact. Second thing they take is hours used per year in taxing compliance, filing compliance. They don't look at the quality of assessment, how much time is taken when you do an audit, etc. World Bank is not capturing that. World Bank is only seeing how much time you take if you have to file a tax return. In India, they have said we take 45 hours per year. You have to do return of income only once, a medium scale enterprise, because all their parameters are with reference to medium size enterprise. So we take 45 hours per year to compile all the data which they need and to file the tax return. Tax return now is e-filing environment. So to key in the data and to do the proper filing, it just takes 45 hours in a year. And if you see our other countries, Singapore is also, which is always said, which is at number 1 in paying taxes, they are taking 32 hours. Hong Kong, which is again ranked 3 on the whole, is taking 50 hours. Korea is taking 82 hours. United States is taking 87 hours. So we have very simple way of filing returns now. And so we have been given 45 hours as far as our income tax return filing is concerned. So we rank pretty well there on that count also. Third is total tax as share of profits. Currently our corporate tax rate was 30% and the effective tax rate works down about 23 to 25% depending upon what size of enterprise you are taking. And if you see the other countries, Australia has 27%, which is higher than our effective rate. Similarly, New Zealand has 30%. New Zealand is ranked number 2. Australia is ranked number 10. So our rank at 142 in paying taxes is not because of direct taxes. It is because you have large number of social security contribution, like every month they have to pay Provident Fund, ESI. That adds up numbers, that adds up hours, that adds up the compliance time taken. We don't rest only on the parameters which World Bank has done for their studies. We are also trying to see that our scrutiny assessment, the way we do the scrutiny, the way we give credit for taxes, all those processes should also improve. Our interface with the taxpayer should be limited. As far as possible, we should be able to leverage technology to make the assessments, the processing that we do of the returns, to give credit based on the information that comes into our system from third parties, so that the life for the majority of the taxpayer is easy.
Thank you, ma'am, for talking to TIOL Tube. Let's hear Mr. Anil Bhardwaj, because he was also a member of that committee, which earlier he was talking about, the Damodharan committee, and he was a part of that report. So he will give us a little more better feel of this, that you tell us your experience. Sir is talking about the 4 broad parameters against which we can measure the ease of business, doing business.
See, today when we are talking about ease of doing business, I think we have to see this in the context that now, there is global competition. And things have changed dramatically in the last 1.5 decades or so, especially after 1995 and India becoming a member of WTO. So we have already ceded a lot of our policy space to international. commitments.
Right.
So having said so, that means that we can't stop imports if they are coming from more competing economies than perhaps we could do 15-20 years ago. That means that we have all those impediments that are there, be it in infrastructure, be it in taxation, be it in human resources, all these ultimately will bring our competitiveness down. Coming specifically to taxation, if we see in the last 30-40 years, there has been dramatic change. Surely taxation has become far more transparent, efficient also. But we have a long way to go, yes. For example, GST is still missing. At ground, there are enough powers in the hands of officials that sometimes can get misused, and people have to pay extra money. That leads to sometimes
Undue pressure on the
field officers also. Okay. So they would like to book somehow the tax, which may, in the scrutiny by the experts or by the higher authorities, may not be found genuine enough. So although we have a system of grievance redressal, but in the current scheme of things, this system is very expensive, it's time consuming, and most of the MSMEs are at the receiving end of such a system. So I think when we are saying ease of doing business, one of the reasons that we are so low is that the cost of getting your problems resolved is expensive and time consuming.
Mr. Bimal, Jain, perhaps your view will be very similar to him, so maybe you would like to share your views.
I will explain my views in this regard. Country India is targeting GDP growth of 8.5% in coming fiscal year. How to get 8.5%? We have to simplify taxation policies. Importantly, apart from land acquisition, infrastructure development, other banking and financial support. In taxation, if you look at this NDA government, this Union Budget 2015 is really progressive, prudent and pragmatic budget. This budget has taken certain steps, and the Honorable Finance Minister has started from an open slate to write down the history. We all are looking for goods and services tax. Honorable Finance Minister, Revenue Secretary has said they wanted GST come into the picture from April 1, 2016.
Now that Mr. Jain finds the budget 2015 prudent and pragmatic, let us hear the CBEC chairman, Mr. Kaushal Srivastava, who spoke to TIOL TUBE on many initiatives taken by the CBEC to improve the ease of indirect tax assessors.
One recent step that we had taken in this direction was issuing guidelines to the field formations that they should be discreet with the process of summoning senior officers of various companies, various entities to move towards digital India. In this budget, we have announced that digital invoices will be acceptable and the assessee can maintain the records after digital signature. This is also with a move towards GST, where all the tax related formalities have to be carried out on an IT framework. Now, online registration will be available to central excise and service tax assessees within 2 days of filing of the application for registration. So, in essence, we are moving to a system of trust-based registration where the verification of documents or premises, which was earlier done prior to grant of registration, has been shifted to the back end. We have made certain changes in respect of the availment of SENVAT credit. We have made some procedural simplification with regard to movement of raw materials and inputs from the to the premises of the job worker directly. And similarly, in respect of registered dealers and registered importers, the goods can be sent directly to the customer's premises without having been routed through the manufacturer. We have now provided for a system of that the advanced ruling is now available also to proprietary and resident firms in India.
Thank you, sir, for your inputs on the ease of doing business. Let us go to various parameters selected by the World Bank. We are talking about the enforcement of contract. That is a very important parameter where, we are very close to the bottom. And that is one aspect which is perhaps, the foundation, one of the pillars of doing business, the contracts. Unless you get into contract, the business will not grow a whole. That is one parameter. Another parameter is, of course, getting credit where we have done pretty well. Then we have, the protecting minority investors. We have the 7th rankings out of 188. This is pretty well. Then we have the starting business. We are still stuck in a quicksand. This 158th rank. Starting business. I mean, that's a very, very fundamental to doing business.
Right.
So maybe Dr. Suraj Kumar will throw some light on this. What has been your experience about this? Although your area is, little more.
First of all, my view or my advice is we should focus on ease of business rather than global ranking. Global ranking is a function of how other countries are doing, which are issues sometimes not within our control. So therefore, it's very important to look at what are the parameters. As a response to the World Bank's Ease of Business Index, the Government of India has initiated its own exercise with regard to an Ease of Business Index, and they have come up with 9 dimensions that conform a lot to the World Bank dimensions. Right. But within those 9 dimensions, they come up with 98 indicators that are much deeper and are not generated based on a perception-based response of the small business player or the medium business player or the large business player alone. Right. So in that sense, it's a more comprehensive set of indicators, and these are indicators where the government knows that there are specific policy steps that they can take. Okay. So I would suggest that it is important to focus on what are the specific steps that governments can take, and in India it means not only the national government but also, as one of the speakers mentioned, the state governments and of course often the local authorities. Right. Now local authorities often play the role of predator.
Not even that, even there's some of the utility services providers like electricity, for instance. Yeah. That is so relevant, from doing business perspective or World Bank perspective. Starting a business itself.
So, as I said, the local players often play the role of predator rather than promoter. So, we need to take a series of actions where you are able to see how that particular role is being changed. Otherwise, a lot of the indicators that are there in the bank report, they can be met on paper, while the situation on the ground would not change much. Right. Therefore, we need to understand that there are power relationships at the local level, okay, that are very difficult to address in a purely World Bank indicator driven manner. The state governments, under whom the local authorities and even the local utility providers have to come for a variety of reasons, can therefore play a role in seeing how is this changing. Secondly, ease of business has to be an ongoing continuous exercise. It has to be reported on a quarterly basis. If we are able to report trends in public finance, trends in GDP on a quarterly basis, surely we must find some way of developing an Indian version of the Ease of Business Index that governments can track on a quarterly basis. Absolutely. Because government is not in the business of defining a problem. Government is in the business of doing something about it.
Index should not be a major issue for us. Major issue for us is sensitizing the policymakers at the state level, the local level, sensitizing the policymakers and the various government departments at the central level. And accordingly, they work in a time frame, they have a deadline that we have to meet this deadline, and the procedures have to be streamlined and made it so simple for the people. I mean, maybe sir will highlight more on this aspect.
Yeah, I think that is a crucial point. You see, in the context taxation, as I said, you take the example of this retrospective amendment. Right. I mean, in income tax, for example, it had created such a furor in the international community and foreign investors that whether it was a desirable thing to do. Right. And it took a lot of debate in India also whether it should have been done or it was necessary. Correct. And then ultimately the government comes to the conclusion perhaps it should have been avoided. So the point is that this kind of policies which are made, they have a lot of impact on the business community.
Right, sir. Absolutely.
These kind of things, the major thing is, for example, you take indirect taxation. You are debating GST for the last 6-7 years in this country. I think the main thing they are watching is whether India will come out with GST and what kind of GST.
GST, absolutely, sir. Yes.
What kind of GST they are going to ultimately anvil so far as the
Malaysia,
Indian
sir,
part is
started
concerned.
later and now they are going to implement from 1st April.
So these are the things. I mean, when we talk of ease of doing business, so people are looking from this point of view.
Right, sir.
That is the taxation simple? Is the taxation known and certain? Is the taxation system something which can be explained to anybody? Not that tomorrow the taxation system will change, tomorrow the structure will change, tomorrow the state government will levy another surcharge on VAT.
When the GST comes, I mean, the major chunk will be accounted by these small businesses. The VAT dealers, for instance, very small dealers. We are not talking about it, sir. We are still stuck with RNR. We are still stuck with, the composition scheme.
We are talking about technical
those
things,
technical
R&R
aspects.
We are not talking of the
So
ground
nation
level
as such is
reality
not involved in the debate.
with which people are really concerned.
And worse than that, sir, no window has been provided to the industry, to the business, to various associations that you come forward, make your suggestions, what you are looking for. There is no official window so far, sir. Because they are saying that they are still stuck with the policy side. So, yeah.
I want to add one thing here. When we all are talking about GST, the service tax rate in the union budget increased from 12.36 to 14% from a date to be notified. Along with that, we got Swachh Bharat cess at the rate of 2% on value of all or any taxable services. So effectively, we would be 16%. And Honorable Finance Minister has said it's a precursor to GST. That's the reason they have increased the service tax rate. But at the same time, he has not suggested revenue neutral rate, which you rightly said. He could have come with some draft public rules and regulation so that we could have contributed. Today, what we are struggling from ease of business. Registration is different date, different form, different process. Payment, multiplicity of taxes. Payment due date varying from one state to another state. Assessment procedure vary from one state to another state. At the same time, appeal it. And my co-speaker has rightly picked up 80% of litigated demand getting reversed by the tribunal. It means the demand is confirmed frivolous. Why we are not having accountability?
I think all the issue is all these things will go in the background when the GST comes. Because GST will be a new kind of tax system which you are bringing. So probably all the past kind of practices, etc., they will go into the background. And people are looking from this perspective that what is the design of GST. And people are expecting that the tax administration should be responsive and should be responsible. It should be responsive also in the sense that if they ask for any clarification, the clarification should come within 24 hours. You are talking of information technology these days. You are saying everything should be digital. You are saying no physical paper should move. You are saying you can write email to us and we will be responsible. Is that going to come?
Absolutely.
The question is this: if I send a mail today to Chairman CBEC or anybody, can I expect an answer within 24 hours, within 7 days, within 15 days? Or am I in the same situation that I can only go on sending mails, but no reply will come? Absolutely. So ease of being business has to do with ground realities. That will they change with the anvil of GST or?
On this note, we would like to wrap up the first episode of Ease of Doing Business, and when we come back, we will go straight to Mr. Anil Bhardwaj to know more about what sort of ease is required by the small businesses in India.